The late autumn sun poured its last golden light through my lace curtains, casting long shadows across the living room. Calla Lowell, stood by the window, buttoning my navy blue coat, my 78-year-old reflection faint in the glass. I had grown used to silence in the 5 years since my Jareth passed. But tonight wasn't meant for silence. Tonight was dinner at my son Oswin's house, something I always looked forward to, even with the knot of anxiety his wife, Cassidy, always gave me. I moved about my home with slow precision, double-checking everything. The front door latch clicked twice. I ran my fingers over the polished wood of Jareth's grandfather clock, its steady tick-tock the heartbeat of the house. My home smelled of lemon polish and loved wood. The clock struck 6. I smiled, picked up the apple pie I'd baked, and stepped into the cool evening, leaving my sanctuary behind. The dinner was, as expected, tense. Cassidy's smile was as sharp as her expensive cutlery. Oswin, my son, just stared at his plate. I was just trying to ask him about his work when my purse, sitting by my feet, began to vibrate with a frantic, desperate buzz. The screen flashed, Trina. My cleaning lady. She knew my one rule: never call during my son's dinner unless the house was on fire. A cold dread washed over me. "Excuse me," I murmured, hurrying to the sterile quiet of the guest bathroom. I locked the door, my hands shaking. "Trina, what is it?" There was no hello. Just her ragged breathing and a muffled crash. "Calla," she choked out. I came an hour early. I let myself in. I waited, my blood turning to ice. Then she asked the question that shattered my world. "Calla, does anyone else have your house keys?" "No," I said, my voice firm. "Just you and me." "Why, Trina? What is going on?" I heard a man's voice shouting this one next, in the background. "Calla," Trina whispered, "there's a moving truck at your front door. A massive one. From Rapid Relocations." The words didn't compute. And there's a woman downstairs. She's in the living room, telling them what to take. "Calla, they're taking Jareth's clock right now." "Trina, listen to me," I shouted, all pretense of quiet gone. "Get out of the house. Now. Go to the neighbors, hide in the bushes. Get out and call 911. Go!" I threw the bathroom door open, nearly knocking over a stunned Cassidy, who was standing right outside, her ear pressed to the wood. I didn't care. I ran past her, grabbed my purse, and sprinted out their front door, dialing 911 as I ran. The next 9 minutes were a blur of sirens and a stomach-churning ride with a kind officer named Jace. We turned the final corner. The blue and red lights illuminated a scene from my worst nightmare. The Rapid Relocations truck was on my lawn. 2 men were maneuvering my desk down the ramp. And standing at the bottom, clipboard in hand, was the woman. She turned her head as we pulled up, and my heart shattered. I knew that face. It was my daughter-in-law, Cassidy. My own daughter-in-law was robbing me blind. "Cassidy!" The name tore from my throat. I scrambled out of the police car, my whole body trembling with a rage I hadn't felt in decades. The men carrying my desk froze. My daughter-in-law didn't flinch. She simply tucked a strand of blonde hair behind her ear and looked at me with mild annoyance. "Calla," she said, her voice smooth and cold. "You shouldn't be here. You'll upset yourself." "Upset myself?" I shrieked. "This is my house. These are my things. You're stealing from me." Officer Jace was right behind me. "Ma'am," he said, addressing Cassidy. "I'm going to have to ask you to stop." Cassidy let out a theatrical sigh. "Officer, this is a complete misunderstanding," she said, opening a binder. "I'm not stealing. I'm managing. My mother-in-law isn't well. She's confused." My blood ran cold. "I am not confused. I am being robbed by her. Cassidy ignored me, handing a sheaf of papers to the officer. This is a signed power of attorney, she said sweetly. And this is a medical directive from her doctor, Dr. Naoma Alston, stating she is no longer competent to manage her own affairs. I am moving her things into storage until we can transition her into the Golden Willows assisted living community. The words power of attorney and incompetence slammed into me. I looked at the papers. It was my signature. Or, at least, it looked like my signature. That's a lie. It's a forgery. I stammered. I never signed that. Officer J slipped from the official-looking documents to me, his expression shifting to professional pity. Mrs. Lowell, he said gently, this appears to be a civil matter. These documents look legitimate. I can't arrest them. A civil matter? I felt the world tilt. Just then, another car pulled up. My son, Oswin. He got out slowly, his face pale, avoiding my eyes. Oswin! I cried, running to him. Thank God! Tell them Cassidy is lying. Oswin looked at the ground, at his shoes, anywhere but at me. Mom, he mumbled, his voice thick. It's for the best. You haven't been yourself lately. You forget things. I recoiled as if he had slapped me. Oswin, look at me. She is lying to you. But he wouldn't. He just stood there, a hollow shell. Cassidy walked over and put her arm through his. See, officer? It's all taken care of. She turned to me. Calla, we have a very nice room waiting for you at Golden Willows. Let's go quietly. No, I said, my voice dangerously quiet. I am not going anywhere. Cassidy sighed. Fine. She's trespassing. Officer, I am formally asking you to remove her. The officer looked miserable. Mrs. Lowell, my hands are tied. You can't stay here. Locked out, betrayed by my own son, and legally declared incompetent. I stood on the sidewalk, a ghost haunting my own life, as the Rapid Relocations truck closed its doors with a final, booming thud. Cassidy and Oswin got into their luxury sedan. My son wouldn't even look at me as they drove away, leaving me on the curb in the growing darkness. The police car lingered, then, with a final sympathetic look, it too pulled away. Silence descended. I sank onto the cold curb, the rough concrete biting into my legs, and let the tears come. They were silent, hot tracks of rage and disbelief. How had this happened? Cassidy's quiet barbs, her constant suggestions that I was slipping, Oswin's increasing distance, it was all a plan. I sat there for an hour, maybe more, until the cold seeped into my bones. I stood up, my joints screaming, and I began to walk. I found a bus stop and rode it to the only place I could think of, a Sleepy Hollow motel off the highway. The man at the desk took my credit card. The room smelled of stale smoke and bleach. The floral bedspread was thin and scratchy. I locked the deadbolt and sat on the edge of the bed. This was my life now. A 78-year-old widow, declared incompetent, in a $50 a night motel room. I tried calling Oswin. It went to voicemail. Oswin, I said, my voice cracking. How could you? How could you let her do this to me? Please, just call me. I knew he wouldn't. I was utterly defeated. I rummaged through my purse, my fingers searching for. I don't know what. My hand brushed against an old, worn piece of cardstock. I pulled it out. It was a business card, frayed at the edges. Lowell, Bancroft and Associates Attorneys at Law. Below it, a name, Orion Lowell. Jarrett's old army buddy, his best friend. He had passed away years ago, I was sure of it. My head was spinning. Was Cassidy right? Was I confused? I gripped the card, staring at it. No. I wasn't confused. I was angry. I looked at the card again. Below Orion's name, in a newer, sharper font, was another, Renly Lowell, ESQ his son. A lawyer. I looked at the clock on the wall. 11:30 p.m. It was too late to call. But it was the first, tiniest flicker of hope I'd had. I clutched that card like a lifeline. I'm not done, Cassidy, I whispered into the stale, smoky air. You haven't won yet. I have a plan. But can a young lawyer really fight a forged POA and a crooked doctor? I didn't sleep. At 8:59 a.m., I was standing outside the glass doors of Lowell, Bancroft and Associates. I felt small and ridiculous, my coat rumpled, my eyes red. I was a crazy old woman with a wild story. But I had walked 3 miles to get here. I pushed the door open. I need to see Renly Lowell, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. It's about my husband, Jareth Lowell. He was a friend of his father's. Moments later, a young man in a sharp suit, but with kind, perceptive eyes, emerged. Mrs. Lowell? I'm Renly. My father spoke of you and Jareth often. Please, come in. His office was neat, filled with books. He listened. He just listened. He didn't interrupt, he didn't look at me like I was senile. I told him everything. The dinner. The call. The truck. The forged POA. The incompetent diagnosis. The way my own son, Oswin, turned his back on me. When I finished, I was shaking. Instead of showing me the door, he leaned forward, his expression hard. She left you on the curb, he said. Yes, I whispered. Renly, am I crazy? Can she do this? She can't, he said, but she did. This is elder fraud, Calla. It's disgusting. But that officer was right, that forged POA is our biggest problem. Do you have any idea where she might have gotten your signature to trace? I thought back. About a month ago. Cassidy came over, all smiles. She said she was updating their estate plan and needed Oswin and me to sign as witnesses. Sign here, Calla, initial here. I was watching my baking show. I trusted her. I didn't read it all. You didn't need to, Renly said grimly. She likely slipped the POA signature page into that stack. A classic, trick and stack fraud. But we need to find the notary who supposedly witnessed it. He pulled out his laptop. The document would have been filed with the county. Let's see. Calla Lowell. Power of attorney, filed 2 weeks ago. Notarized by a Maribel Pines. I've never heard of her, I said. Of course you haven't, Renly muttered. He kept typing. Aha. Maribel Pines. Her notary commission is active. Her listed address is a P.O. box. He spun the laptop around. That's sloppy. But the real mistake is here. He zoomed in on the digital copy of the POA. My signature was clear. But the date next to it was October 15th. When did you say you signed those witness papers? He asked. I thought hard. It was a Friday, the 17th. I remember, because my favorite baking show had its finale. Renly grinned. Calla, you're brilliant. She got the signature on the 17th, but the document she forged was predated to the 15th. But look. He pointed to the notary stamp. The notary, Maribel Pines, didn't file for her commission until October 16th. I stared. Calla, he said, his voice electric. A notary cannot possibly have notarized your signature on October 15th if her notary commission didn't even exist until October 16th. The document is fraudulent. The POA is a fake. But it's not enough. We still have to deal with the incompetent diagnosis. That's the match, Renly said, slamming his hand on the desk. The case hinges on two legs, the POA and the medical directive. We just sawed one off. Now we go after Dr. Naoma Alston. He was already shrugging into his suit jacket. But first, we need to find Trina. She's the only one who saw the robbery in progress. Finding Trina was harder than we thought. We went to her apartment, but she was gone. Renly immediately hired a private investigator he knew. Find her, he said into the phone. She's in danger. While the PI worked, we spent the day in a blur. Renly filed an emergency motion with the court, using the fraudulent notary date as evidence. The judge, an older woman who looked at the evidence with visible disgust, signed a temporary restraining order against Cassidy, barring her from disposing, selling, or accessing my assets. This gives us 72 hours, Renly explained. Now, we visit Dr. Alston. Her office was in a sleek, new medical plaza. It smelled of money and disinfectant. When we walked in, a woman in a crisp white lab coat emerged. She was young, with the same cold, appraising eyes as Cassidy. I'm Dr. Alston. I don't have an appointment. I'm Calla Lowell, I said, stepping forward. My voice didn't shake. You signed a paper saying I am medically incompetent. I have never met you in my life. How is that possible? Dr. Alston's face paled, but she recovered. Patient confidentiality, she snapped. I can't discuss this. Please leave, or I'll call security. We're leaving, Renly said, his voice calm. But I'm serving you with this subpoena for your records, your notes, and all correspondence related to my client. And this, he added, is a formal complaint we are filing with the State Medical Board. Dr. Alston's composure finally cracked. Get out, she hissed. As we walked out, Renly's phone buzzed. It was the private investigator. He found Trina, Renly said, his face grim. She's hiding at her sister's in the next county. She's terrified. Cassidy paid her $5,000 to forget what she saw and to leave her key. My key. I felt sick. She used my own key to let them in. It gets worse, Renly said. Trina didn't trust her. When Cassidy gave her the cash, she was so scared that she recorded the entire conversation on her phone. My heart stopped. A recording? Yes, Renly said, a predatory smile spreading across his face. We've got her, Calla. We've got her on fraud, witness tampering, and conspiracy. We have the recording. But what did Cassidy say? And what will she do when she finds out she's been cornered? We met Trina at a diner. She was a bundle of nerves, but she handed over her phone. Renly plugged it into a small speaker. Cassidy's voice filled the air, low and venomous. 5,000, Trina. That's more than you make in 3 months. You didn't see anything. If you ever repeat what you saw, I will make sure you are deported. Do you understand me? There was a pause, and then Trina's small, terrified yes. She threatened to have her deported, I whispered, my hands clenched into fists. Trina, who I knew had been working on her citizenship. This is the nail in the coffin, Renly said. He copied the file. You're safe now, Trina. We're going to file for a protective order. She will never bother you again. The relief on Trina's face was so profound, she began to cry. Back in the car, Renly was on the phone with the district attorney's office. The fraudulent POA was a civil matter, but witness tampering and extortion? That was criminal. They're opening a case, he said. But we have a new problem. Cassidy just got served with my restraining order. That's good, isn't it? I asked. Renly shook his head. It means she's a cornered animal. And she knows we're coming. We need to find your possessions. Where did that rapid relocations truck go? I asked. Renly had the answer. The PI had tracked it. It didn't go to a high-security storage facility, he said grimly. It went to a cheap, auction house warehouse in the industrial district. The kind of place that does quick sales for cash. She wasn't storing your things, Kala. She was planning to liquidate them immediately. My breath caught. My mother's china. Jarrett's war medals. We met the detective Renly had spoken to, a no-nonsense woman named Kincaid, at the warehouse. It was a massive, bleak metal building. Renly flashed the court order. The manager led us into a cavernous, dimly lit space. Lot 47B, he grunted. And there it was. My life. My sofa, my lamps, all stacked haphazardly. My boxes, labeled photos, were torn open. They had been rummaging. I walked forward, numb, and saw Jarrett's grandfather clock lying on its side, a long, deep scratch down its face. A low sound of grief escaped me. I touched the scratch. This was not just theft. This was desecration. She did this just to be cruel. We have enough, Renly said gently. As we turned to leave, my eye caught something. A flash of color on a nearby crate. It was a bright, gaudy flyer. Cash for your treasures. This weekend. Huge estate sale. 125 Oak Street. I froze. 125 Oak Street. That was my address. She's defying the court order. Cassidy is planning to sell everything from my own house. She's having an estate sale at my house? I was vibrating with a rage so cold and pure it steadied my shaking hands. She's selling my things, out of my own home, like I'm dead. Renly ripped the flyer from the crate. This is tomorrow, Kala. 9 a.m. He looked at Detective Kincaid. She's violating the TRO. This is contempt of court. And it gives us a perfect opportunity, Kincaid said, a slow, grim smile spreading. We know exactly where she'll be and when. We can serve her with the criminal summons right there. Publicly. Good, I said, the word coming out like a chip of ice. I want to be there. I want to see her face. Renly looked at me, concerned. Kala, that's going to be incredibly painful. I don't care, I interrupted. I started this, and I am going to finish it. I will not hide in a motel room while that vulture auctions off my memories. Renly studied my face, saw the steel that had replaced the tears, and nodded. Okay. We do it your way. We spent that night in a flurry of preparation. Renly had insisted on putting me in a proper hotel, his firm covering the bill. Detective Kincaid arranged for a uniformed presence. We'll have 2 officers there, ostensibly for crowd control for the sale, she explained. They'll be my backup. When I give the signal, we move in. Renly, meanwhile, had been on the phone with Dr. Barrows, my real doctor. Dr. Barrows was appalled and sent over my 30-year file showing a perfectly healthy, competent woman. He was also preparing his own affidavit to submit to the medical board. The DA is moving on Dr. Alston, too, Renly told me. They're likely arresting her as we speak. The conspiracy charge is locked in. That night, I didn't sleep, but it wasn't from fear. It was from anticipation. I thought about Oswin. My son. He hadn't called. Not once. He was either a coward, or he was a fool, or he was in on it. He had made his choice. Tomorrow, I would make mine. I rose before the sun, showered, and put on my simple, dark green dress. I put on my pearl earrings, Jarrett's last gift to me. I looked in the mirror. The woman looking back was not the confused, weeping victim. She was a general going to war. Renly and Detective Kincaid picked me up at 8:30 a.m. "You're ready?" Renly asked. I just nodded. "Let's go get my house back. The sale is starting. Strangers are walking through my home. And Cassidy is waiting. This is the ultimate confrontation." We parked down the street. My quiet block was transformed. Cars were parked everywhere. People, strangers, were walking up my driveway, carrying empty bags, their faces full of greedy curiosity. My stomach churned, but I held my head high. "Okay," Detective Kincaid said. "It's 9:02. The officers are in place. Let's go." We walked up my own front path. The front door was wide open. Standing just inside, by a card table with a cash box, was Cassidy. She was dressed in a sleek black dress, smiling. "Welcome, welcome. Everything must go." She saw us, and her smile faltered. Her eyes darted to me, then to Kincaid, then to Renly. She saw the papers in his hand and her face went rigid. "Calla," she said, her voice dripping with fake pity. "You shouldn't be here. This is too stressful for you." "Oh, I'm not stressed, Cassidy," I said, my voice ringing out clearly, causing several shoppers to turn. "I'm just enjoying seeing how you've redecorated." A woman holding my mother's porcelain vase paused, looking confused. "Who is this?" she asked. "I'm Calla Lowell," I announced to the room. "I am the owner of this house. And this woman," I pointed directly at a now pale Cassidy, "is my daughter-in-law. She forged documents, declared me incompetent, and is illegally selling all of my possessions." The room went dead silent. That's a lie." Cassidy stammered, her face flushing red. "She's sick. She's confused." "Security," she called out, looking for the officers. Detective Kincaid stepped forward, flipping open her badge. "Cassidy Lowell? You are in violation of a temporary restraining order. And this," she said, pulling out a document, "is a summons for you to appear in criminal court on charges of fraud, conspiracy, and witness tampering." Cassidy's face drained of all color. "No, you can't," she whispered. Renly stepped forward. "And I'm here to serve you with this," he said, placing his own stack of papers on her cash box. "It's an emergency motion to invalidate the power of attorney. The hearing is this afternoon. Spoiler alert, we have the notary's fraudulent filing date. We have Dr. Alston's confession, she was arrested an hour ago. And we have a recording of you threatening to have Trina deported." With every word, Cassidy seemed to shrink. The shoppers were backing away, whispering. The woman with my vase gently set it back down and hurried out the door. "Get out!" Cassidy finally shrieked, her mask of control shattering. "All of you, get out!" But no one was listening to her. "Yes," I said calmly. "I believe this sale is over. Cassidy is exposed. But where is my son, Oswin? His betrayal is the one that cuts deepest." Just as the last of the stunned shoppers shuffled off my porch, a car screeched to a halt at the curb. It was Oswin. He ran up the lawn, his face a mask of confusion. "What's going on?" he yelled. "Cassidy? Mom? Why is there a police officer here?" He looked from his wife's ashen face to my cold, steady gaze. "Oswin, thank God," Cassidy sobbed, running to him. Tell them your mother is sick. Tell them this is all a misunderstanding." Oswin looked at me, his eyes pleading. "Mom, please, what is this? This is too much. You need to be in a home," Dr. Alston said. "Dr. Alston was arrested this morning," Oswin, Detective Kincaid cut in, her voice flat. "For felony fraud and conspiracy, along with your wife." Oswin's head snapped back to Cassidy. "What?" Conspiracy? She lied, Oswin, Renly said. She faked the power of attorney. She bribed a doctor. She threatened to have an innocent woman deported. She stole your mother's entire life, and she was liquidating it for cash. My son looked at the ground, his whole body shaking. The truth, stark and ugly, was laid bare, and he had nowhere left to hide. He was an accomplice. I didn't know, he whispered, the weakest defense I had ever heard. She told me you were forgetting things, that you left the stove on. And did you ever once come and ask me? I asked, my voice cutting through the air. Did you ever, once, look me in the eye and ask if I was okay? Or was it just easier? It was easier, he suddenly shouted, tears of shame and rage streaming down his face. She just handled everything. I'm busy. We have a mortgage. She said the house was too much for you, that we could use the money from the sale to pay for Golden Willows. It just made sense. There it was. The pathetic, greedy truth. He wasn't just a fool, he was a willing one. He chose to believe the lies because the truth was inconvenient. Cassidy was being put in the back of the patrol car. Oswin. Do something, she shrieked. But he just stood there, paralyzed. Mom, he said, turning to me, his face crumpled like a child's. Mama, I'm sorry. I didn't mean. I didn't know. Please. Don't hate me. Please. He reached out for me. I looked at his hand, the same hand I used to hold when we crossed the street. I stepped back, out of his reach. My heart, which had been broken, now just felt empty. You chose, I said, my voice flat and final. You chose her. You chose the money. You chose the lie. And now you have to live with that. I turned my back on my son, and I stepped across the threshold of my own front door. I was home. I got my house back, but I lost my son. The months that followed were a quiet storm of legal battles. Cassidy, facing overwhelming evidence, took a plea deal, 5 years in state prison for fraud and extortion. Her entire defense collapsed when Dr. Naoma Alston, in a bid for a lighter sentence, testified against her. My incompetence was legally and publicly reversed. Renly Lowell was a shark, and I was eternally grateful. He and his firm handled everything, even hiring a restoration company to repair my home. Most of my possessions were recovered. But some things were gone forever. My mother's vase was shattered. Several irreplaceable heirlooms had been sold for cash. But my Jareth's clock. Renly found a master craftsman who spent a month painstakingly repairing the scratch. The first time I heard its steady, familiar tick-tock echo through the living room again, I sat on the floor and wept. They were not tears of sadness, but of release. The heartbeat of my home had returned. Trina came back to work for me. The first day, we just sat at my kitchen table and drank tea, not as employer and employee, but as survivors. With Renly's help, I sponsored her citizenship application, writing a letter of character that brought tears to the immigration officer's eyes. She was family now, more than my own blood had been. And Oswin, my son. He called. He wrote letters. He showed up on my porch, weeping. For 6 months, I didn't answer. The wound was too deep. He had divorced Cassidy while she was awaiting sentencing. He lost his high-paying job when the scandal hit the news. He was a broken man. One day, I found him sitting on my front steps in the rain. I finally opened it. I don't want anything, Mom, he said, his voice hoarse. I just wanted to tell you, you were right. I was a coward. And I'm so sorry. I didn't invite him in. Not then. But it was a start. Sorry is a word, Oswin, I told him. I'm interested in actions. He started therapy. He got a new, humbler job. He volunteers at the senior center, the very kind of place he'd tried to dump me. He is trying. Our relationship will never be what it was, that bright, tender eagerness is gone forever. But perhaps, in time, it could be something. I, Calla Lowell, am 79 now. I live in my house, on my terms. I am not a confused old woman. I am a warrior. I am the woman who took back her life. Sometimes I sit in my living room, the scent of lemon polish in the air, and I listen to the ticking of Jareth's clock. It's a reminder that time heals, but it also measures. It measures our choices, our betrayals, and our strength. And my strength, I discovered, was far greater than I ever knew. Calla got her justice. What part of her story shocked you the most? Let me know in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more stories of justice and empowerment.